Our presentation is on the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement.
I'm Cam.
I'm Cohen.
I'm Ben.
I'm Davis.
All right, so first thing we're going to talk about just what the USMCA is. So this is a trade agreement that started in 2020 after the North American Trade Agreement. This is kind of a new reformed one between the three countries. The main goal of the USMCA is to make trade between these countries cheaper and more efficient. It does this by removing many tariffs, which are taxes on imports and exports, and allowing these goods to move more freely across borders. It also makes trade easier by creating a clear set of rules that businesses must follow when trading between these countries. These rules help reduce confusion, increase consistency, and make a ground base of rules to help battle corruption as well. Another key benefit of this is that it strengthens the supply chain, meaning companies can spread production across all three countries to make it the most efficiently, and it lowers costs as well. Overall, the USMCA is a system designed to regulate and improve trade while helping these three economies work more closely together. And then now we're just going to go over the timeline for how it started. It originally started in August of 2018, and this is when the NAFTA agreement was cut off and the planning for this begun. The leaders agreed in principle to replace the old agreement. And then in 2019, this is when the signing and revisions came. The agreement officially signed by all three countries for this to take place. Over the next years, some revisions were made along the route to make stronger labor protections and environmental standards were added. And then in January of 2020, this is when it officially started. So next we're going to talk about the trade theories that we learned in class and how they are applied. The first one we're going to talk about is comparative advantage. What this is that countries should specialize in what they produce most efficiently to help become more efficient and make the most amount of money. So between these three countries, they each do certain things the best. For United States, it's their capital, their technology, and their skilled labor. They do a lot of technology, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, services, like high-skilled services, and then high-skilled labor. For Canada, they have a lot of natural resources, so they use those from their oil, their natural gas, their timber, minerals and metals, and agriculture. And then lastly, Mexico, they focus on their low labor costs and their large workforce. So they focus in auto assembly, parts manufacturing, textile, consumer goods, and fruits and vegetables. And one example of this is kind of like a car production. So the materials might come from Canada, parts are made in Mexico, and then finally the assembly happens in the US. And this shows how all three countries rely on each other and specialize based on their advantages.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about new trade theory. This shows that a country can still benefit from trade even if they have similar resources, because producing on a larger scale will drive cost production down. This is relevant because all three countries are well developed. Companies can operate across borders to take advantage of larger markets and lower production costs using this trade theory. An example of this is Nestle. They often get their ingredients from America and Canada, and then they use Mexico to produce it because their labor costs are a lot cheaper.
So as we kind of figured out, the USMCA helps the US, Mexico, and Canada work together more closely in trade and business. So a big benefit of the USMCA is that it improves supply chains. This means that companies can get materials and labor from all three countries. By doing this, they can save money and become more competitive in the market. When companies work together across borders, they can create better products and services for everyone involved. Additionally, they have strong supply chains, which helps businesses handle problems that may come up, like global tensions. If a company relies on just one supplier and that supplier has a problem, it can cause big delays. By working with different suppliers from different countries, businesses can reduce their risks and adapt to changes easier. So looking forward to the future, we can expect even more cooperation on trade policies and supply chain management. So now let's talk about the review coming up this summer. This review is important because it gives us a chance to look at how well the agreement has been working since 2020. The main goal of this review is to see if things like trade, worker rights, and environmental rules are doing what they're meant to do. During this review, we'll hear from many different people. This includes businesses that trade across the border, workers who are affected by these rules, and government officials who help manage the trade. Their feedback is important because it helps us understand what is working well and what might need improvement. This review is also important because it gives us a chance to make sure the agreement stays relevant and useful. It helps to adapt any changes in the economy, ensures that the agreement continues to benefit everyone involved.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the economic significance of the USMCA, and the pros pretty much outweigh the cons, but I'll start with the pros. The three of them share a supply chain, and Mexico became the top U.S. trade partner in 2023, reaching $873 billion in bilateral trade in 2025, and Canada was second to Mexico. From 2024 to 2025, U.S. compliance on imported goods from Mexico rose from 49% to 76%, and for Canada, 35% to 79%, which is a huge growth margin. And lastly, it keeps trading tariff-free within North America, which absorbs 1/3 of all U.S. goods exports. And for the cons, some small businesses are at disadvantage. They have increased regulatory requirements integrated into the USMCA, which can decrease resources for the small businesses. And additionally, rules for sourcing automotive parts and paying higher production costs will affect U.S. vehicle costs overall to rise, and production costs for the companies. Finally, for the critical evaluation evaluation and conclusion, the USMCA is a modernization of North American trade policy, which has delivered many benefits across the continent, along with some criticisms as well. The agreement has created a much more efficient and integrated regional economy, which is backed up by the numbers. The USMCA strengthens supply chain resilience and has reduced dependence on countries outside of North America. And it's provided a buffer for global disruptions like COVID or different political shocks for all three countries. However, the agreement isn't exactly flawless. Once again, small businesses face increased regulatory requirements that consume their resources that can be absorbed by larger firms much easier. Additionally, the USMCA rules of origins provisions require stricter regional content and higher wages within the automotive industry, which would affect production costs, leading to rising vehicle prices, reducing competitiveness instead of increasing it. Overall, the agreement is mostly positive for all three economies, but some weaknesses like those mentioned should be addressed in the upcoming joint review.
And then here are our sources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.